Hello everyone, here again Mark Cabrera, and today we'll be discussing procrastination, something that all of us have done in our life at some point or another. We always think about procrastination as a negative thing, but it doesn't have to be. There's reasons why we procrastinate, and this is some of the things that we're going to cover today, as well as the reasons why not to procrastinate. But more importantly, procrastination is very common, mainly because we are human beings with certain innate, distinct personality traits that are very common across the board. Procrastination happens to be one of them. So today we'll be talking about procrastination for the reason that we want to be productive, we want to do well in our businesses, and we want to excel in the things that we want to do in our lives. It's being intentional in your life. It's what it's all about. So just keep that in mind when we're going through this. First off, what is procrastination? So I looked up procrastination, kind of curious what is the definition of procrastination. And it's the action of delaying or postponing something. It could be anything. But more importantly, the root word comes from a Latin word, pro, which means forward, and crastinus, meaning tomorrow. So the habit was learned all the way back then in the Roman times, or even before then. We already had this procrastination as an issue. And today we'll be discussing it so that we can minimize procrastination. So this seminar we're doing today is about how to minimize procrastination. Notice minimize, because to absolutely eliminate procrastination is somewhat robotic or not being a human being anymore at that point. This is a habit and a learned behavior. It's not something that necessarily that all of us are born with, but we learn it through the environment that we have. So it depends on the culture or where you grew up. It makes a difference what you learn and how you, one culture, they have this thing, at least in my culture, we call mañana habit, means tomorrow habit. Basically, everything happens tomorrow and nothing gets done today. Or everything is so slow that nobody really attends their appointment on time. Sometimes they're 30 minutes late, sometimes they're an hour late. And everything is okay based on that culture. So everything kind of gets delayed throughout the day because that's how it is in the islands. That's the culture that's been there for years and probably even centuries. But we're going to be discussing today how you can improve your business by minimizing procrastination. As for habits, we can change our habit. Just like anything else that we have, we can unlearn the behavior and replace it with a new behavior. Just like when you're trying to lose weight, some people have these programs that they will take, they will have that allows them to lose weight. But unless it becomes a habit for you as part of your life, then you will maintain that weight or actually even lose it to the point where you're comfortable with where you are in terms of your weight. So successful diets are actually acquired habits, whether it's part of exercising or part of eating or just being healthy in general, less in alcohol or use or all these other things that we put in our body as toxic. So what is procrastination? I just discussed that with you guys. It's a Latin word, like I said. Pro means forward in Latin. Crastinus is tomorrow, so it's forwarding it tomorrow. List of reasons why we procrastinate. We don't talk about this enough because it seems like it's natural that everybody does this procrastination as long as things get done. But what we miss out is the opportunity to have more time for ourselves, for our families, for the things that are more important in our lives, rather than just constantly working and procrastinating a lot of the work and spending a lot of time thinking about it rather than doing. So something we dislike to do is one of that came up to the list. There's a lot of things that we don't like to do out there, but there are times that we are bound to do it or obligated to do it. And so we do them. But we do them haphazardly or not really 100% that we want to do it. So we procrastinate that. That's one of the reasons why we procrastinate, because it's something we don't like to do. Goals are not specific enough, abstract. This is one of the things that I train my mentees, that if they want to achieve a goal, you have to know your destination specifically to the last dollar, and also specifically what it looks like when you know you made it to your goal. This is very important to have, mainly because that's your destination, and from there you create that roadmap or your list of activities that you need to perform and processes that you need to create. And based on those processes and programs pointing to the destination you're trying to get to, the procrastination sometimes is not as much. It gets minimized because you have a particular goal. So we're going to discuss that later on. I'm going to go through this reasons why we procrastinate. So if any of this kind of hits you in a right way or the wrong way, well, it's time to think about it, because it's time to move and make things happen for yourself and for the people that care about you and for the people that you care about. Because at the end of the day, if you cannot help yourself, how do you expect to help the people that you care about? And especially if you're the one bringing in the income to your family, right? If you're going to go to work, make sure you maximize your time there so you have more time at home with your family. Overwhelming. That's another good reason why we would be procrastinating. When you're overwhelmed, we tend to freeze at times. This is also natural, mainly because our bodies and our minds are saying, whoa, 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 slow down, let's think this through. And then procrastinations begin, and finding reasons why things shouldn't be done right now. Short-term gratification. This is quite interesting. I've heard it many times. There's actually a clinical study on children that was given marshmallows. And these children were given enough time to either eat 2 marshmallows now or be able to eat 1 marshmallow every hour. And you will find that a lot of the children, or not even majority, but a lot of the children ended up eating the 2 marshmallows because they don't understand the concept of delayed gratification. But there are some children that they found that they already have it innate with them of what we call delayed gratification. So they waited after an hour, got another marshmallow after an hour. So they ended up benefiting from the wait. So this is something that you can research yourself. But delayed gratification is something that's very important and part of our lives. And if you really looking to succeed in real estate, delayed gratification is what we have in this type of business. The difference between working as an employee and working as a realtor is working as an employee. Every certain amount of weeks or every month, you will actually get something for your work. So it's a gratification that's short term because you know it's coming. But in real estate, sometimes all your work that you're doing now won't produce any fruit until 3 months from now, or any commission until 4 months from now or 6 months from now. Being able to delay gratification helps you be able to, if you understand that you're that type of person and you recognize it and you can understand the delayed gratification idea, then you'll more than likely not procrastinate as much as well. So we're going to discuss this a little later as well. Work aversion. Well, some of us, there's moments in our lives we don't feel like working, whether we're tired, we're exhausted, we just want to avoid work. Well, procrastination pretty much defines that. Disconnect from our meaning. This is something that is the core of why we all work. There's something inside us that drives us to have meaning in what we do when we work. I'll give you an idea. I go to work every day and I'm excited every morning because I'm looking forward to be able to give a great life to my children. Now it sounds abstract, but specifically when I define a great life for my children, it's for them to grow up not having to worry about finances and just be kids and be able to achieve certain goals that they want, and as a parent be able to support them with their goals that they're trying to achieve. So if they have activities that they want to do, I want to be able to afford to pay that so that they can experience those activities. So in other places in the world, they don't even have that. They just have the basic food, shelter, clothing, just to be able to provide. That's why they get up in the morning and not necessarily excited about it, but they just need to do it. So there's a difference between the motivations on those kind of scenario, whereas procrastination comes into play is the whole idea that you delay the uncomfortable. And there's going to be times it's uncomfortable working, but then if you have that meaning inside you, what you're trying to accomplish, it makes it worthwhile. And you get things done more efficiently because you're not procrastinating as much, because you have a meaning that you're in your life that you're trying to move forward. Anxiety or feeling uncomfortable. I just discussed that's another one that's here as a reason why procrastination is there. Perfectionism. There's people out there that want everything perfect, otherwise they don't finish the work. That's also a procrastination. That's a form of reasons why people don't get to finish work and they procrastinate finishing a work, because some of them are actually wanting everything perfect, which in the real world, getting things done is more important than being perfect. It's nice to be perfect, but it doesn't always work that way. Lack of self-control. This is another one. It's everywhere around us, where people cannot control their emotions or control their urges or control their feelings, that they want to do certain things and they get distracted. So they procrastinate the ones that are important and not get things done when it's supposed to. Distracted, just brought that up also. Personality disorders. There's ADD, OCD, there's, you name it. On the next subject we're going to be talking about is the personality disorders, which I went through a lot of study on this, mainly because I'm very curious on how people are, if you can spot certain people that are a certain way, if they're extreme or they're, just because personality is, to me, is fascinating. And also because when I'm sitting down with my clients, I want to understand them better. And some of them are going to the extreme of yelling and screaming, and you're trying to figure out, like, maybe it's me, maybe it's them, what is it? So understanding personality disorders is really good to have. Now, tying into procrastination, you'll see now the byproduct or the product or the fruit of procrastination, or how procrastination is created. Perfectionism. Those are the OCDs on the extreme. So anything that's extreme is what makes it a disorder. All of us have this type of personality in ourselves in a small way. When it becomes the dominant or like the majority of your theme in your mind, it becomes a disorder. It's more like how the tendencies. If it's on the tendency is great that you're like this all the time, then yes, it is a disorder. That's how the clinicians are considering this. Perfectionism, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, they tend to never finish the work that they start. So they get into something, they go in there, they're still perfecting it, never getting it completed. So avoidant personality disorder. These are the extreme people where they're afraid of everything. and never get anything started because they fear that there's going to be consequences or repercussions out of it and things that will affect them in some way or another. Antisocial personality disorder. This is what we have, what we call a sociopath, which is a negative connotation of it, but it's called antisocial personality disorder. It's lack of empathy towards others. This happens, but one of their biggest issues in the antisocial personality disorder is lack of meaning. They don't have something that compels them because they're not in touch with their emotions. That's why empathy is not there. So as you may notice, it's starting to tie into the list of list of reasons why we procrastinate. Well, this is the extreme part that I'm talking about right now. Lack of accountability. Those tend to be the narcissists on the extreme side. They blame everyone else for their action or inaction. So things don't get done because they procrastinate, because they know they can make an excuse out of it that it's not them, it's someone else's fault or something else happened. So nothing gets done just because they kind of move around and manipulate the situation around them, so they never get blamed for it, even if it's their fault. Overwhelmed, self-esteem issues, a desire to be accepted by others. This is the self-esteem issues on the disorder side. Distracted. These are the attention deficit disorder syndrome, I guess. Life is a distraction, and it creates procrastination because they go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing that comes in their way, and nothing gets done because they're supposedly good at multitasking, but they spread themselves too thin. But at the same time, anything that comes in, whether it's something that's related to business or just simply an activity or TV that distracts them and nothing gets done because they're somewhere else, their mind is always somewhere else than the actual task, so they never focused. So well, anyway, I'm not an expert in this. This is something I studied, so check with your local psychologist and describe as I described here. And of course, it would always be good to hire a life coach if you're really having problems with procrastination and staying focused, so you can minimize procrastination. So going into the next step, the steps we can take to minimize procrastination. What are the steps? Well, one thing, identify if you have any psychological issues that we need to work on, and work on it through a professional or through a group or through a community. Do something about it, because at the end of the day, things just don't move without you moving things, if that makes sense. So identify if you have psychological issues, if procrastination is something that's happening frequently in your life. So you check with your psychologist, figure out and take some tests or whatever they do over there to figure out if there's any disorders you may have. And if not, then that's great. That's good news. Now you can figure out, maybe you can just make changes in your habits, right? Surround yourself with highly productive people who don't procrastinate as much, because those people already figured it out. See, all of us will have this part of us that will procrastinate, and the ones that are already successful that minimizes procrastination can teach you a lot to minimize your procrastination. Pick up good habits and learn from those people. Create meaning to the productive activities that you are doing with your work. This is having a vision, creating a meaning of what it looks like when you get to that destination. So then as you go through the process, when you understand that if you're in a crossroad between procrastinating or getting work done, the meaning you have inside you and the vision that you can imagine what it looks like will drive you to minimize that procrastination route and take the route of activity and production. So some of these things will help when you're making phone calls to prospect, or like I said, we're doing prospecting. You want to make sure that when you get to the point where you're finding excuses why you don't want to make calls as a priority, or you're doing something else as an activity, this is the time when you dig yourself into your mind a little further and remind yourself what the meaning of why you're doing certain things in your work. At the same time, looking at it from the vision of what it looks like when you complete that work, or what it looks like when you get to the level where you want to be. Hold yourself accountable when dealing with your issues of procrastination. Hold yourself accountable. A lot of us have reasons why we didn't get things done. And at the end of the day, accountability to yourself is the most difficult to achieve, mainly because there's no consequence to it, because you create the consequence to it. But in reality, the consequence is what your reality looks like 6 months from now, a year from now, when you haven't sold a house, or when you haven't made any income in this business. So it's very important for you to start thinking, when you're procrastinating, if you're holding yourself accountable or you're finding excuses why things didn't get done. When you get to that level or to that point where you're finding excuses why things didn't get done, then all you have to do, or remember, to look at yourself in the mirror, and that's the person that you're seeing that didn't get it done. Break down large tasks into small, manageable size pieces. This is a scenario where you're feeling overwhelmed and the task is overwhelming, and you start getting anxiety or getting anxious because you don't know if you can get it done or not because it's so big. And I'll give you an example of that. Is if you're looking to, in the business that we're in, if you're looking to sell a $2 million house, list a $2 million house, there's a lot of more preparation that's needed in order for you to sell a huge house versus a condominium. Mainly because you have to get that property staged, especially if they're in that price range and it's vacant, versus if it's a condominium that's already, someone's living in it and they know how to live very well and very clean and very neat. There's less things to do, but you're gonna come across listings that are just overwhelming in that sense. What you gotta do is break it down into processes. And when I say that, is you look at it from step 1, by this date, certain things has to happen. Step 2, by this date, certain things. So you put a deadline on everything, and you put a step-by-step process how it's gonna get done. And then you only focus on those things that you can do right away first, and then you focus on the bigger task and break that down into small pieces where you can take it one step at a time until you get everything done. So it's interesting because I was talking to one of my former colleagues who happens to be not in the business anymore, and we were laughing at the fact that we had this client that had 24 conditions that came back from the underwriter that needs to be done. And we were reminiscing, and he was telling me, like, Mark, do you remember that 24 items that we needed to get done? And we both started laughing. I said, yeah. To me and to him, it didn't matter that it was 24 items. What mattered that all those items can be done at some point or another. I would rather have even 50 items to be done than having 2 items and it's impossible to get done. When I say impossible, it's like you cannot come up with any other reasons how you can, other solutions how you can solve the issues. But we had 24 issues, and we looked at each other like, oh, this is nothing. We'll just break it down one piece at a time. Break it down one section at a time, and eventually you'll get to the 24 and everything is finished. So we were reminiscing about that because a lot of the times we get discouraged when there's so much in front of us to deal with. But if you can chunk it into smaller pieces and then just start knocking it out, eventually you can get there. It's like they were saying, there's a cliche about if there's an elephant in the room, you knock it out, to get that elephant in the room, of course, there's no way to get him out. You got to take it in chunks, in little bite-sized pieces, to be able to get it out of that room somehow. But looking at it from the time perspective, if you have to study for an exam for another state, or you have to study for certain test, or you have to read a subject to be able to teach, many different reasons, or you have to actually sit down to do a presentation for listing, doing research, and it's going to take you hours. Break up the time as well into 25-minute increments and take a 5-minute break. So it will help you be able to continue the task and doesn't feel so uncomfortable and daunting, because you broke it down into pieces, the time increments. Accept the fact that some tasks are going to be unpleasant, and learn to reward yourself of those tasks that you can accomplish, so that you stay motivated. This is something that's done a lot for psychological purposes. It's the whole idea of the carrot and stick that some employers put as a process in their organizations, mainly because you want people to perform better, but someone's imposing that on you. In the real estate, you have to impose that on yourself. Keep yourself motivated this way. Because otherwise, I call our business, whether you're self-employed or unemployed, those are the only two things that you have if you're in a real estate business. Either self-employed or unemployed. Or at that point, you can become an employer once you figure this all out. So, remind yourself of the consequences if tasks are not completed on time. That's the stick. Earlier, I was telling you, reward yourself when you get things done. Well, or think about the reward when you get things done. And remind yourself of the consequences if you didn't take care of the task on time. Imagine the discomfort not being able to complete a task or complete a goal that you're trying to achieve. The disappointment. I'm pretty sure all of us have gone through some disappointment in our lives. You got to really look back and how that feels like. Then it creates that, even though it's negative, it's a motivation. Now, positive motivations are typically better than negative motivations. But some negative motivations in a short term can even drive you faster to your goal than a positive one on a short term. Because long-term negative motivation just gets tiring after a while. But positive motivation on a long term is more durable. Create a vision board to keep you excited on your goals. Vision boards, to me, is so nice because sometimes we forget what we're trying to get to. It's like looking at your destination. You know, if you wanted to have nice vacations, you want to retire, what does it look like, that kind of stuff. Because, you know, sometimes when we're so busy with all the things that we're doing, we're so stressed out, it would be nice to have that board at the right place at the right time to keep your mind focused, that you need to get things done and you minimize that procrastination. Create a mission statement to have a logo or meaning in your life. A personal mission statement is something that's very important for us to improve our lives. One of the reasons why that even though we talk about it, or sometimes I've had people tell me, oh yes, I'm going to write it up, but they never do because they think it's not as important as the day-to-day tasks that they're trying to accomplish. But the reality of it is, a mission statement is even more important than anything else you get to do, because the mission statement is a destination or what you want to become or what you're trying to accomplish. So having that reminded or reminding yourself that every day helps you be able to focus and minimize procrastination. Live a life of fulfillment as well as achievement. There are people out there that live their life for achievement, which is great. You can achieve being the top seller in this office. You can be a top seller for the whole country, the whole world. Great. But the question becomes is, do you feel fulfilled? And fulfillment comes from within. Knowing your goals, knowing your mission, knowing where you are, appreciating the things that you have. We don't have enough of those out there. All we see sometimes are all the negative things are happening around us. And you don't get to see the beauty of having, for me at least, having children. Where when I see my kids playing, or I get to play with my children, I get to see them smile, it's all just fun, right? They're not thinking of any issues, problems, or whatever. All that stuff is yours. But the question becomes is, what do you do? Do you maintain that element of anxiety or that element of negativity around the people around you? So appreciating the things that you already have makes a huge difference when you're working with your clients, because people can feel that. They want to work with somebody that's genuine and caring. And those are important qualities that people choose their agents, as well as other things, of course. Keep a balanced life to minimize anxiety, which causes the procrastination. The anxiety that we have, part of it is self-created. And it's self-created because we are procrastinating certain things that are important in our lives. And in doing so, we're creating a snowball effect where things are small, and after 30 days, 60 days, it becomes bigger, and then 90 days come around, you don't even know where to hide because the problems are so big, right? It doesn't have to come to that. I had a good friend of mine, unfortunately, she passed away last year, in the beginning of the year, and I remember how she lived her life. She never got anything done because she wanted everything perfect. She didn't have a balance in her life. She's always emotionally unstable, had issues psychologically, so she went to her therapist all the time. But nobody really kind of mentioned to her how to kind of maintain her life on a regular basis where she can find happiness within the things that she has and appreciate the things that she has. And she had that opportunity, and at some point she lost her kids, and at some point she just lost her life. So I don't know how much more to stress that one of the things that happened to her was very tragic, because she procrastinated everything from not paying her mortgage to not paying her car payments. Eventually she lost her car. Eventually she lost her house. She ended up in a shelter. She lost her children. It was a snowball effect. It's the worst thing what procrastination can do to your life. And I saw it in her. I tried to help her the best I can, but unfortunately, at some point she took her life. And that's the lack of appreciation. But yet she's very accomplished. She's very smart. She was working for the government at some point, NSA or some big organization. She was making over six-figure income. I mean, all these successes around her, but she didn't understand the balance that she needed to maintain in order for her to maintain a normal life. And the biggest issue, she relied on her ex-husband, who eventually left her, and she didn't know how to live. Even though she knew how to work, she didn't know how to live. So balancing your life is very important. When I say balancing your life, is balancing your health, making sure that you have your health, you have your spiritual mind somewhere around there where you can create peace inside you and accept things the way they are and achieve things and be able to feel fulfilled and appreciate the things around you. And then you have your relationships with others. And then, of course, making sure that you pay your bills and not lose your house and not lose your car and not lose everything that you have, or only prioritize work and not be able to take care of the people that you care about and that care about you. So understanding this balance is very critical to understanding what happens when it's not balanced. And when your life is not balanced, it's a snowball effect as well. It's a spiral, downward spiral, all the way to the bottom. And when you get to the bottom, you don't know if you're going to actually end up bailing out or trying to actually work your way back up. So of course, I always recommend to work your way back up, which means recognize if you have any disorders, recognize if your life is not balanced, recognize if you will be able to do something to improve your life and appreciate life and feel more fulfilled. Because chaos can be happening around you, your business might not be doing as well, or you actually have transactions after transaction loss that you don't, for some reason or another, they fall apart last minute, and it's so much work that you've already put into it, that kind of thing, and you feel so exhausted and tired. All of us have been there, okay? You need to pick yourself back up and get things done. This is the only way you can get yourself off of that downward spiral. When your depression kicks in, and if you can recognize that you're depressed, believe me, seek help. That's very important to do. So looking at it from your business and how your business improves is number one. You need to take care of number one, which is you. Because everybody who wants to do business with you want that person to be positive as much as possible, to be real, to be the kind of person that will be supportive. It's hard to support others when you can't support yourself. So just keep that in mind when we're looking at all this. Exercise and eat properly to stay healthy and with energy to minimize laziness and tiredness. This is something that some people struggle with because they don't take care of themselves. They don't eat well. So every single thing that you put in your body, okay, has an effect, either a positive effect or a negative effect or a neutral effect, whatever effect it is. But it has an effect. So when people overeat, you might enjoy it now, but you will suffer the consequences long term if you keep overeating. So, kind of cut down on your eating. The ones who don't exercise at all, well, you know what? You'll appreciate it when you start going up and down the stairs and you're catching your breath showing houses, okay? Because I've gone through that where, man, I'm so tired, I just stand there in the living room and we have my clients go up and down the stairs to see the place. Well, guess what? Your clients want you to see the place too because they want your opinion about it, right? So you end up going up and down the stairs. Well, at least exercise. If you want to call that exercise, that's fine, but do exercise because this is an energy drainer when you don't have enough strength to do certain things, or when you wake up in the morning feeling terrible because you just haven't been exercising and it's really draining your energy. So eat well and exercise. This is something that will kind of minimize procrastination because your energy level is much higher and you're more likely to enjoy doing the task than not doing task or production. Have a habit of personal development to learn ways to combat procrastination. So if you think you have an issue on not getting things done now, keep searching for the answer because somebody has gone through what you're going through. So don't feel that you're the only one out here. There's a lot of people out there that went through hell and they came back. As a matter of fact, I was just listening to a speaker, a very famous speaker now, that lost her job, got divorced, went through hell actually going through custody battles, and she just didn't feel like getting up. And she's actually one of the advocates of minimizing procrastination with what she calls her 5-second rule. And if you look at 5-second rule, you'll probably find her as a speaker on this 5-second rule. And this 5-second rule that she has is that when you have to do something that you might end up procrastinating or not doing at all, you have 5 seconds to make something or start going a particular direction with it. So as an example, if you're going to a networking event and you're an introvert, and you're such a shy person, and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be meeting people here. I know I have to do this, and it's not comfortable, right? This lady will teach you what her 5-second rule is. And in essence, a 5-second rule that she's talking about is when you get into that room, you have 5 seconds to think about whether or not you're going to meet a person and start talking to someone, or you won't probably do it at all because you're going to overthink it. And that's another reason why procrastination happen out there, is because we overthink things. And then we start picking up anxiety, and then we start picking up fear, and all these other things that comes into our head. And then we start looking at reasons why we don't want to actually see people. And then we start blaming someone else for it, or something else of what happened, why I couldn't do it, right? All of us have been there, okay? And for someone to tell me that they never actually experienced that in their life is definitely lying, because that's a very common thing that all of us go through. You might not think about it in the past that it happened to you, but I'm sure you've run into that situation. So bear that in mind, looking at that. And hence the reason why personal development is one of the biggest things that I do on the trainings that we do for my mentees, because I always want them to grow personally. Because what we sell, again, is not houses. We sell us as human beings, as people that have wonderful personalities, that are actually caring, kind, and loving to everybody. Okay? When does procrastination becomes productive? Which is an interesting question, because when we think about procrastination, it's usually a negative connotation to it, and we just laugh at it. It's like, oh yeah, I did that the other day. You know, I didn't get this thing done because it's just like, oh my gosh, you know, so much work to do on that part. So I delayed and delayed and delayed, and when the time comes, I had an hour to do it. I got it done, 1 hour before it's due. Okay? I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I've done the same thing, right? And it doesn't always turn out pretty in the end. There's moments where I was looking in retrospect that I could have done a better job, that I didn't because I was procrastinating. So when does procrastination becomes productive? Yeah. When you are procrastinating on your not to-do list, okay? Or not getting it done at all. Not to-do list is something that some people here are familiar with. A lot of you guys may not be familiar with. But it's a list of things that are eating away your time from creating production in this real estate business. The excuses why you didn't get certain things done. The reasons why that you didn't make your phone calls. Because, and then I'll list you the things and tell me if it's actually something that sounds familiar. I had to pick up my children. I had to play with my children. I had to spend time with my wife. Remember, mind you, all that is all good. But those things should be planned as well. Okay? Not in place of making phone calls. Oh, I had to talk to my friend for 3 hours. I was on Facebook for 6 hours. Oh, because I was going to make some marketing and I had to figure out what marketing the people are doing in Facebook. So I spent 6 hours instead of making phone calls at all. Oh, I had to learn KV Core, and that took like 5 days, and I still haven't learned it to this day, because between procrastinating and that, and actually not making my phone calls, or not talking to people, not prospecting, trying to get business, I want to learn how to write contracts. Oh yes, I spent like 2 weeks writing contracts, fake contracts, so I know how to write contracts. Great. Where's your client? Procrastinating on your prospecting is something that will kill your business. And it will kill your business as long as that habit is there. So that should be part of your not to-do list, is not to procrastinate on making phone calls, talking to people, setting appointments, and face-to-face. Those should be the basic. So when you are procrastinating on time wasters such as watching TV, Facebooking, Instagramming, or Twittering, that's when procrastination becomes productive, because those things 60, 70, or even 80% of the time are unproductive. And sometimes it's even delegatable, which that's what I've done, because some people tell me like, oh, well, your social media is the greatest thing in the world. Guess what? Great. Social media is great. But if I cannot even reach my normal clients and customers that I normally work with and be able to do business with, what good does it do? I mean, that's something that's like a high-hanging fruit. I go after the low-hanging fruit first, and when I run out of that, then I go up higher. It's perfectly fine. You should do the same. It's actually much better exercise. When you procrastinate on spending time with negative people, and believe it or not, we had our own shares of that. Sometimes we have a choice, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we enjoy the drama. Sometimes we want to hear people's problems. Sometimes we want to hear people's things that they're doing because we're curious and we're like one of those gossiping type of person, right? Well, guess what? If you procrastinate on that, you're going to do very well in this business because nobody really needs to be gossiping around. I mean, you know, create something productive for yourself. When you're procrastinating on being a perfectionist and focusing on getting things done. Do not procrastinate on getting things done. Okay? Procrastination is not always bad. Use it to stay away from negativity and distractions. That's bottom line. Negativity and distractions are the number one reasons people, and you can pretty much put that in two categories right there, of what reasons why people procrastinate. Why solve your procrastination problem? It's not affecting your business anymore or less, probably, right? Or if you don't recognize that you don't have any problems with procrastinating and making it part of your business, fine. Because whatever you don't do, you would most likely do to most of your tasks. And what I mean by that is, if your approach to a particular work or task that you're doing is to procrastinate, more than likely that habit will carry on to all the other tasks. And 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of procrastination multiplied by 15, 20, 30, and you can see that the number of times, the number of hours, the time wasters that you're going to have starts to add up. So my philosophy is very simple. I work hard, I play hard. So I go to work and I work my darnest. And I do everything I can to get things done. And then when I play hard. I focus on just vacationing if I'm vacationing, doing the things I want to do when I'm doing things I want to do, playing with my kids or hanging out with my wife. If this is a scheduled time that I do, that's what I do. So I don't always pick up my phone, mainly because when you pick up your phone, you break up that rhythm or that scenario, that circumstance you have with your families that bring memories. And what they remember when they get older, yeah, I was playing with my dad for 2 minutes and then I'm sitting there waiting for him for 5. I mean, it's not very pleasant, especially when they grow older. You cannot really take those things back. I had my fair share of that as well because, at some point I forgot about balancing my life. And I've been there. Because your career depends on it, especially if your family depends on you. After a while not making any income in this business, okay, your spouse will tell you, get the hell out of the business, get a full-time job. Okay, at some point they will do that. But if you focus on your business and you don't procrastinate, minimize your procrastination and create as much activities as you can, it's almost guaranteed you're going to succeed in this business. And make sure also that you're constantly developing yourself. I don't know how much more I would stress this. Develop yourself through personal development programs out there, to classes, to books that you can read about how you can approach and learn how to influence people. All these other things that I've already been discussing here. So when I first came on board here, the idea was for me to talk about this area of the subject, not necessarily real estate, but it is somewhat real estate related, like I said, because personal development is not something that's taught in school a lot, And it's not taught in a lot of these classes that you'll understand. They're showing you techniques. But what good are techniques if your inside is not complete? If you don't know yourself, you don't know how to approach yourself, you're insecure about yourself, you don't know your insecurities, you don't know where it comes from, you don't understand certain things, you don't forgive people, you don't understand how to be patient with people, you don't know how to approach certain problems that come up, you don't know how to take care of the people that you're taking care of, the clients that you have right now, the people that you're selling a house to and they change their mind for some reason. Yeah, recently I had a mentee who just lost a client because the client changed their mind because someone talked them out of it, right? But instead of getting upset, she had the right attitude. That agent went back up and said, you know what, it's okay. Tomorrow's a new day, I'll go and get another one. Sure enough, picked up another client. Why? Because she's constantly developing herself to be a better person, a better version of herself, the 2.0 version or the 3.0 version of herself. And it's constantly improving the way she's looking at the world. And based on that, you find success. You find success on constantly improving yourself because there's so much room for us to improve. And the better we are as human beings, the better we'll be received by others. And the more customers, more clients will come to you. It's a natural thing. So that's one of the reasons why you gotta minimize procrastination, is because procrastination is something that takes away time from you, from your work, and from your family. Because you'll get more tasks done and accomplish more with your plans and live in an intentional life. Intentional life. When I say intentional, I mean you are in control of your destiny. You are in control of where you want your life to be. See, people can control or try to control you when you're employed. I've done that. I've been there. I've done that. But half the time I considered myself unemployable for that reason, that I don't follow what others' goals are. I follow my goal and what I see in this world. So that's why me and corporate never really got along very well. Until, of course, Samsung came around and you have great management here. They take care of us. So, because there are no take-backs on regrets for not taking any action. This is a good one. If you look back in your life, you're going to find little bits and pieces in your life that you could have done differently. Of course, some of us consider that as regret. I consider that as a learning experience. But the more important part of that, of the learning experience, is what you do now. See, regrets happen because we procrastinate, or one of the many reasons it happens. We don't take actions, or we decide too late. You're going to have times in your life where you wish you would have decided sooner and had that opportunity, and then you missed. Right? So just keep that in mind. I mean, moving forward, you got to keep that in mind when you're procrastinating, that you might be turning down opportunity that you have now, that you later can look back and say, that was a mistake. So, because life is meant to be lived and not the other way around. Procrastination is the drainer of life, because as you go through life, you're going to experience more if you get those important things done and procrastinate the ones that are not important, that doesn't impact you in a positive way. If something does not impact you in a positive way, right, procrastinate. But if something that you're doing or something that is happening that you need to make a decision right away, do not procrastinate, because you could say yes, you could say no. But the most important part is you've done the part when you can or the sooner that you can get it done. My mom always told me this, and it's a words of wisdom for my mom. It's better to be first at something than to work hard at something and not be first. When I say first, as in you were the first one to pick up the opportunity. If you notice in our markets, it's constantly changing. 1 year, 2 years from now, market could be down. 2 years ago, the market was going up. Right now, the market is high, right? All these market changes are happening all the time. The question becomes, where are you on this market that we have? If you're one of the first ones who did short sales in 2006 like I was kicking everybody's behind. If you're one of the first people in 2008 actually got into foreclosures and you already had relationships with these banks years prior, right, you would have been killing it. I have a friend that's actually here in Virginia that was listing 400 properties a year for the banks. So believe me, if you want to succeed, you want to make decisions when the decisions need to be made and not procrastinate. As Mark Twain says in this quote, never put off till tomorrow what may be done day after tomorrow just as well. Because if it's not going to get done today, it doesn't matter if it's tomorrow or the next day at that point. So to me, getting things done today is more important if the task is the important task that you need to be doing. But if it's going to be time wasters that you're going to be doing, procrastinate on that. It's okay to procrastinate on those things. I have this saying, why put off something today when there are better things to do than something you don't like to do, and you'll end up needing it to do it in another day anyways, if it's that important. So if you're here right now and you're getting ready to do something and you're uncomfortable or you don't feel good about it because whatever reason you have, but it has to get done, right? Why put yourself through hell of anxiety and doing it tomorrow, next week, right? Get it out of the way. If it's painful, don't prolong the pain. Shorten the pain to the shortest possible time because it needs to be done anyway. And sometimes those things go further out and it becomes worse. Like somebody's procrastinating taking their car to the mechanic shop, let's say, right? And first they only had an oil problem. After a week, they have an engine problem. Do you see what I'm saying? But it's so painful because you have to cough up, let's say, $200 to fix that oil problem that you're having or oil leak that you're having. But a week from now, you procrastinated, you have $5,000 to replace an engine. So if you look at that analogy, it makes perfect sense to get things done when you need to get it done. Even though it costs you a little bit of money now, it costs you a lot less in the future. So procrastination has no room for successful people in the real estate business. Thank you so much.